Great. Thank you, Karen. All right. Hi, everyone. It's good to be back. Helena had an amazing word just before. I don't have to tell you all. We are going to see God's face. All right. What does the word tell us about those who are going to see God's face? It's in Matthew chapter 5. Pure of heart. That's right. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. All right. And that's what we've been learning about a lot lately. That's what the Lord's been leading us into. And that's the revelation that's been coming so powerfully. And without any sort of, it hasn't been slowing down at all. In fact, it's just getting faster and faster. And it's moving us into a really awesome direction. You know, it's so awesome sometimes that it makes me nervous bringing it. But it is amazing. It's an honor. It's very humbling to bring this message. And we are going to delve deeper into the heart today. All right. So let me start with this. I was at work just a few days ago and the Lord dropped something on me. If you find the wording a bit clumsy, it's because He shares meaning with me and understanding, but it's up to me to paraphrase it. But this is what He told me, right? We are a peculiar people. We are distinguished by the way we operate, live, commune with God, and the way we walk with Him. Because these ways are all through the heart. Okay? We are called to be a people of the heart because we are people of the heart. Alright? We are called to live according to the heart so that we can walk in the new things and the new ways of God. Alright? And the way of the heart is the way of the tree of life. Okay? The old way is the way of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Is that? It needs to come down a bit, right? Yeah. Yeah. No, thanks, Helena. Yeah. So the old ways, as Des so clearly put, is the old way is dictated by the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and we're leaving that behind. We can't walk in the new ways and in the new paths of God using the old ways. All right? And I often know and I recognize when God's talking to me when He uses words that I would never use, or sometimes He uses words that I don't even understand. But when He calls us a peculiar people, what He's saying is that we are not the ordinary or the usual people, and that we belong primarily to a special or unique group. All right? What the Lord also told me during our Christmas break is that He's going to lead us into a limitless life. Okay? It is amazing. I don't really, I can guess, but I don't really know what that looks like. But I'm keen to step into it, as I'm sure you are. And what I want to do today is talk about how we're going to walk in those new ways and step into that new life. But before we do that, there's a few things we need to understand about what holds us back from that new walk, those new paths and those new ways. All right, so let me start with this question. Do you ever wonder why things take so long to change? Why we go through such prolonged periods of nothing changing? Why do we struggle so much? Why sometimes things, nothing seems to change. All right? Like we know very clearly God has not limited us in any way, so why do we experience such strong limits in our life? All right? And I don't know if it was a vision, but I was shown something about a week ago. And what I saw was a person in a cell, and they were on their knees earnestly praying. All right? Earnestly praying, fasting, studying the word, you name it, taking in teachings. They knew they were in captivity, but they didn't know what was holding them captive. All right? And their way out of captivity, they thought, was to read more, was to pray more, was to fast more. And then they just kept pushing and pushing. But that cell that they were in still contained them. All right? Now, I alluded to this, and I spoke a little bit about this 2 weeks ago. But there is something that holds us captive. Alright? We are not free as God intended us to be. Alright? Now this person in the cell wanted to escape, but they couldn't. And their frantic efforts didn't help. Alright? Now, this prison cell is very different from all of us. For some it is a strong prison cell, for others not so much. For some it's strong in one areas and weak in others, right? It's unique to every person. But this prison cell, it's a spiritual prison cell. This spiritual prison cell is your heart. Okay? It's your heart. Alright, now let me demonstrate. Mark 11:23. Truly I tell you, if anyone says to this mountain, go throw yourself into the sea, and does not doubt in their heart, but believes that what they say will happen, it will be done for them. Okay? This is what God gives us. This is what we have. But what happens if you can't believe that without doubting? Okay? What happens if you pray for something and you ask for something, but you can't believe without doubting? Proverbs 3:4-6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him and He will make your paths straight. And again, what happens if you are not able to trust in the Lord with all your heart? What happens if you can only trust in the Lord with part of your heart? Okay? See, the thing is, you can be limited and you can even be imprisoned to some degree by your own heart. Alright? In some cases, your heart has the ability to render the power of God to nothing, to bring it to nothing. Alright? Matthew 13. So they were offended at Him, but Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor except in his own country and in his own house. Now, He did not do many mighty works there because of their unbelief. Okay, again, what if you're praying, but you're praying in unbelief? What can God do for you? Okay? And what is the link between unbelief and the heart? Hebrews 3:12. Beware, brethren, lest there be in any of you an evil heart of unbelief. Okay? It's all about the heart. The state of your heart dictates how you function in the Spirit. The state of your heart dictates your intimacy with God. Alright? If your heart's healthy and strong, you're going to have answered prayer. You're going to walk in signs and wonders and miracles. You're going to walk and live an amazing life. But if your heart is not healthy and it's not strong, it's going to be difficult to walk in those things. It's going to be difficult to get answered prayer. And therein lies the prison cell. Okay? So, how does that relate to us? To some degree or another, as far as we're all concerned, we live and function within our own selves. Alright? We do what we know to do, but we don't know that we have a cell around us and that it's holding us back and it's holding us captive. Alright? We work hard, we strain so much. We do everything we know how to do. Alright? But what we do hardly ever affects the heart. We never look at the heart. We never question the heart. We don't even know that the heart plays the role that it does. So we don't know how to change it. So we can never escape ourselves. Alright? That's why things seem to take forever. That's why things never seem to change. That's why it seems that our prayers are sometimes never answered. Alright? But the moment you start recognizing that your heart is the cell, and the moment you start recognizing that there's things you can do to change that cell, the moment you start doing things that can affect the heart positively, you're going to find that things are going to start turning around pretty quickly and very powerfully. Alright? Now, I'm going to attempt a little exercise with you guys, okay? I want to show you what I mean. So let's see how this goes. Alright? Now, we've spoken about the heart and the mind so many times. If I ask you a question, it's usually your mind that's going to respond straight away. What colour car do you drive? What's your favourite food? Boom, boom, it comes out of the mind. But what I want you to do is I want you to silence your mind, and I want you to think about and listen to what your heart is saying. Alright? Deep down. And you've got to be honest, because more often than not we suppress the heart because we don't like what it's saying. Okay? We don't like it. Sometimes the heart is capable of deep and dark things, and we don't know how to handle it. We don't know what to do with it, so we squash it and keep it quiet and put it in the box in a corner. I'm asking you now to listen to your heart. Be honest. You don't have to speak it out loud. You don't have to tell anyone, but at least be honest with yourself. What is the response of your heart to the questions I'm about to ask? Okay? If I come to you and I ask you, can you please turn this jar of water into wine? Can you do it, please? Turn water into wine just like Jesus did. What does your heart say to that? What if I come to you and I say, there's 5,000 people we need to feed. There's 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Can you please replicate it so we can feed 5,000 people? What does your heart say to that? Here I have a deaf person, a blind person, and a lame person. Can you please heal them? I'm not asking you to pray for them. I'm asking for you to heal them. What does your heart say to that? See, the thing is, John 14:12 says, most assuredly I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also, and greater works than these he will do. All right? So, the questions I just asked, the response that we want from the heart is, yes, I can do that. No doubt. Yes, I can turn water into wine. Yes, I can heal the blind and the sick and the lame. A confident, emphatic yes. That's what the heart should say. But more often than not, what happens is, I can't do that. There's no way I can do that. Only Jesus did that. This is blasphemy. Whatever. We're going to get 100 different responses, right? You guys know, hopefully, what your heart has said. And if you can, you'll see the limit in what your heart said. If your heart said, no way can I do that, there's the limit. That's how we're limited. Okay? Only Jesus did that. There's the limit. We are called to do that. Not only are we called to do that, but that's actually, He made it the floor. That's the bottom level. We're going to do greater works than that. But what does your heart think about that? All right? Remember that your heart has the power to render the power of God null and void. Your heart dictates your spiritual walk and your spiritual life. Your heart dictates whether the power of God is manifest in your life and to what degree. But if you are called to do these things and your heart says, no, I can't do that, you can't do it. It won't happen. Your heart has to be in agreement with you. It has to be in agreement with the Word. Okay? And that is the limit. So I used a few examples here, but you can do the same thing in your own lives. I'm sure each one of us here has something we're praying for, something we're pursuing, something we want and need from God. Right? Was that true? Yeah, we all have something? Okay. So think about this, right? Again, let's do this just quickly. Think about this. Listen to your heart. What is your heart really saying? Do you believe that He can do this for you?
Yes.
All right, yeah. In most instances, I believe it's a complete yes. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, right? Do you believe He will do it for you? Yes? Great. Do you believe He'll do it for you now?
Didn't catch that. What was that?
Do you believe He'll do it for you now?
Oh.
Right now?
Depends what his time frame is.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
necessarily my time frame.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you believe He wants to do it for you?
That's
Yeah. You see, yeah. We hit a snag somewhere. And that's where we realize, that's where we get a feel for where the limits are. You see, the thing is, religion often teaches us, yeah, He can do it, but He won't really do it for you.
yeah.
Or it'll say, yeah, he'll do it for you, but he won't do it for you right now. It'll happen for you at some point in the future. Right? But no, God can do more powerful things than that. He can give it to you, and He's capable of giving it to you right now. Where is it? Mark 11:23. I'm going to go back to that. Truly I tell you, if anyone says to the mountain, go throw yourself into the sea, and does not doubt in their heart, but believes that what they say will happen, it'll be done for them.
How long did it take?
Well,
It doesn't give the time frame.
it doesn't give a time frame. It just says it'll be done for them. But here's another thing it doesn't say, right? It doesn't say God's going to sit and decide whether you deserve it or not. It doesn't say God's going to look at you and think, yeah, you're okay, you've done well this week, you can have it. All right? Or you're worthy of it. He just says, the word just says, do not doubt in your heart, but believe, and then what you say will happen. It will be done for you. God's not even... everything we ask for, we're mature believers here, everything we ask for, everything we want and need is yes and amen. It's a question of whether you're going to believe without doubt. Right? And the moment you do that, it'll be done for you. Alright? So, hopefully this sort of gives you like a very, very brief demonstration. We have limits. Okay? If you can surpass all those limits, if you can truly believe that what you're asking for will be given to you without doubting, you are going to have it. Okay? And that's the problem. Most of us pray in unbelief, we pray with doubt, and then when we get overcome with doubt and unbelief, then we go to others for prayer and ministry, and we rely on their faith to get us what we need. Okay? So this is what the cell looks like. The limits of the heart. These are what have to come down. Okay? These are what have to come down. The cell only keeps you in place when you don't know what it is and when you can't see it. Okay? And only we know the limits of our own heart. Only we know how our hearts hold us back. And why does the heart hold you back? It's because pain and suffering lead to a corruption of the heart. The enemy knows, he's a master at this. He knows how to take the pain and suffering in your life to turn it against you, to turn it against your heart, so that your heart turns away from God. Right? That's what shuts down your heart. And when your heart is turned away from God, it's very difficult to believe without doubting. Because God's no longer good. God's holding back. You see, your heart starts believing all these lies. And that's where the doubt comes from, that's where the unbelief comes from. Okay? But the good news is, the great news is that we're not, although there are limits there that can be overcome. Alright? So to walk in the bigger things, your heart has to open up. You have to make your heart vulnerable to God. Alright? The pained heart, the suffering heart, it closes up. It closes up. It defends itself from everyone and everything. And more often than not, it defends itself from God. Alright? It's a very sad place to be. It's a very difficult place to be. Now, I got a word last year. I've already shared it 2 or 3 times. At the time, I thought it was just for me because I was dealing with difficult situations. But now I'm starting to realize the significance of this word. And I want to share it with you again. Because it's got a whole new meaning. Alright? This is the word I got last year. Stand up and become what I've called you to be. Start growing and keep growing. Put into practice everything that you've learned. Go bold, go big, go deep, go high. Do all of that and stretch yourself. You're not doing yourself any favors by staying small. Alright? And when I asked the Lord to elaborate on that, He told me going big means to trust for more and to believe for more. Expect more and know that more is awaiting you. Know that more is available. Going bigger is to trust Him more and to open up to Him more. Okay? It's to believe that He is more than you think He is. It's to believe more of everything about opening your heart to Him. More also means to pursue more and to expect more. Do things more quickly and be more aggressive spiritually. Stretch yourself and get out of your comfort zone. Get used to stretching yourself. Learn how to stretch yourself. And when you go after bigger things, don't ask for them. Simply trust and believe that they will be provided. This is how you truly stretch yourself. This is where the limits are, wherever you put them. Because the limits are ours, they're not God's. Alright? Now, I want to go back to, because I'm looking at this in a whole new light now. God said, you're not doing yourself any favors by staying small. He's basically saying, you're not doing yourself any favors by staying in your prison cell. Alright? The limits of your heart have to come down. You have to get set free. Alright? And the one thing that came out repeatedly, which I didn't quite understand, is to stretch yourself. Stretch yourself. Learn how to stretch yourself. Okay? Stretch yourself and get out of your comfort zone. Get used to stretching yourself and learn how to stretch yourself. Okay, learn. So we have to stretch ourselves, and more specifically, what it means to stretch yourself is to stretch your heart. Yeah? Because that's where the limits are. You've got to start breaking those limits. And you stretch your heart by believing more than you usually do, by trusting more than you usually do, by expecting more than you usually do. Pursue bigger things. Pursue them for right now, not for some time in the future. Okay? Pursue more than you normally would. And when you do pursue anything, pursue it with the full intention and expectation that it will happen. Know in your heart that it will happen. Know it, that it will happen. Don't just try to do something. Don't just try, because when you try something, there's already an admission in that it may or may not happen. Doubt and unbelief are already involved, so it's all finished. We don't try to do anything, you just do it. Okay? When it comes to the heart, matters of the heart, you do it, you don't try. Alright? And remember this, guys, when it comes to praying and communing and anything you do with God, it's never personal. So if you pursue something, whether it's healing, finances, whether you're praying for someone else, it's never personal. If you have an unanswered prayer or nothing seems to happen, it's not because God turned his back to you. It's not because he said no. Alright? His word's very clear. You've got to believe without doubting. Alright? What it is when you pray for something and nothing seems to happen, believe more, trust more, expect more. Go deeper, go deeper, go deeper, go deeper, until eventually God either says something or you are given what you're asking for. Okay? When nothing happens, it's not a no, it's an invitation to come deeper. Alright? Open your heart more. When nothing seems to happen, it's an indication about the state of your heart. Open your heart more. Open your heart more. And when your heart opens enough, things are going to happen. So Helena asked for testimonies earlier. I had a couple, but I saved them for now. But I tried this, right? Now, so I don't know, or most of you don't know, but I work in a manufacturing environment, all right? So it's hard work. It doesn't pay well. I'm not entirely happy there, but I'm grateful to be there because it pays the bills. But one day I put all of this to practice, right? And one night I was praying and I was putting all of this to practice. And what happened is the following morning, right, around 9 o'clock, I got a call. And what happened is a lady that I knew, I didn't even know her name. She's just an acquaintance. She called me up. She said she'd heard about me and she'd heard I'd been involved in IT and all sorts of stuff. She invited me to become her marketing manager for her business, right? She imports food from overseas. So since that time we've met and we've spoken and it all looks good. So my transition out of manufacturing is beginning, right? And the pay is good, and it was no interview, no nothing. It's here's a job. Do you want it? Yeah, of course. Thank you. But that to me was a demonstration of what I'm talking about now. Right? Things can happen. We don't know how they're going to happen, and we don't know what God's going to do, but things will happen. Your petition, your prayer is going to be answered somehow, some way, and very powerfully. Yeah.
Question. How did you say that you were operating in it that night?
Okay.
What were you doing with your heart?
Okay, that is an excellent point. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to address that at the end, because it's possibly the most important point. All right, but I'll get to that. All right. So, when you pray for something and nothing seems to happen, don't get discouraged, don't despair. Because if you get discouraged and despair, if you look at it the wrong way, what it actually does is it builds unbelief into you and it builds doubt into you. So the next time you go to pray, it gets even harder. All right? You've got to know and you've got to recognize that it's all about the state of your heart. There is no no's. You might get a no if you ask for something completely amiss, right? But I know you guys aren't going to ask for Lamborghinis or millions of dollars, all right? It's hardly ever going to be a no, right? It's simply a matter of the heart. It's a state of the heart. So don't get dejected. Don't get discouraged. Keep going. Open up your heart until something happens. And I'll tell you, there is nothing that's going to be held back from you. Nothing. It's just your heart. Break down those limits. Recognize where those limits are. Because I'll tell you one thing too. When you start praying for something, your heart always responds. Most of us don't recognize this. We don't see it. We don't experience it. But if you learn to look for it and listen to it, you'll recognize it very quickly. When you start praying for something, very often your heart's going to have a very strong opinion about it. I myself have prayed for things and I can quite strongly feel my heart say, no, it's not going to happen. All right? And that's something we need to look at as well. And we'll get to that. How do you deal with that? So, anyway, you have to stretch your heart. Get out of your comfort zone. Why do you have to get out of your comfort zone? Because your heart doesn't want to get stretched. Your heart wants to protect itself. Your heart wants those walls around it. Your heart is the one that put those limits in place. All right? Your heart's it's doing the best it can. It's just trying to protect itself. But it doesn't understand. All right? It doesn't understand that it's protecting itself from the very Lord that is there to heal it and look after it. Okay? And that's where we step in. That's why we have to bring those limits down. Okay? You have to come. It's that, and the reason we have to come out of our comfort zone is because it is actually uncomfortable. All right. If you want to bring down those limits and you want your heart to open up to God more, it's uncomfortable. Okay, because you're going to take your heart to places it doesn't want to go, but your heart doesn't know any better. You do, and you have to lead your heart there. All right. Opening up your heart and stretching it is a choice that you can make. Your heart's going to resist you, but it's a choice you can make. Okay? Now, what is the significance of stretching your heart? If we go to Matthew 9, 16 and 17, the verse you all know very well. No one puts a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch pulls away from the garment and the tear is made worse. Nor do they put new wine onto old wineskins, or else the wineskin breaks. The wine is spilled and the wineskins are ruined. But they put new wine into new wineskins, and both are preserved. Okay? God is releasing new wine right now. Okay? And we are the wineskins. Okay? More specifically, it's our hearts. Okay? We have to stretch our hearts to accommodate the new wine. This is why stretching is so important right now. You see, the thing is, last time we were talking about the end time church, the lukewarm church. You see, many of us have stepped out of that church, but we still carry some of the old ways, right? Many of us are accustomed to the old ways, the ways of the lukewarm church. We know the lukewarm ways. We have lukewarm results. We do the lukewarm things. We live lukewarm lives. All right? That's all got to change, and we have to go beyond that. That's why the stretching is important. All right? So stretch yourself by dropping your guard, making yourself vulnerable to God, opening your heart to God, And keep doing it. Keep doing it. All right? Open yourself up until you can believe without doubting. All right? You see, the thing is, when you can get to that point, and it's not a matter of if you can get to that point, it's a matter of when. When you can get to that point, you are going to start living the limitless life. The life we've been called to live. All right? And by limitless, some of the things I'm talking about, freedom from financial struggle. I'm talking about bodies that can start getting younger and stronger. Right? Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to the most. Freedom from disease and sickness. Right? Freedom from all sorts of ailments. Right? I don't know. I mean, the sky's the limit, but to me, that's what comes to mind. So remember, stretch yourself and always know that you can always go deeper. There's no limit. And you can go as deeply as you can, as quickly as you want to. Right? Like I said, God has placed no limits upon us. The limits we deal with are the limits we've placed upon ourselves. Alright? So that's the...
How do you specifically deal with that limit you put this in yourself? Like the doubt, like the unbelief, like the wrong belief.
Yeah.
There are three main things I see holding Christians back from believing and acting the way God wants them to.
Yeah.
You have to address those yourself.
You do.
And attack them.
Yes, you do. And we'll get into that. Because that's probably the most powerful message of all, how we do that. Let me get into another second point, and then we're going to talk about what Paul's brought up, because he's bringing up very good questions. All right, so I want to leave you with that. Stretch your hearts, okay? Stretch your hearts. Go beyond what you're normally accustomed to doing. Recognize that there's a cell there. Recognize that your heart is a prison. And start tearing it down. Stop the frantic efforts and look at the cell and focus on that. Okay? That word that I just gave earlier, do that. Believe more, trust more. Start tearing down that cell. Those prison bars. But the second thing I wanted to talk to you about today, and it's also related, is identity, right? Our identity in Christ. We've spoken about this so many times. We all know it, right? It's so important to walk in that identity, but this is now taking a whole new dimension. Because the two topics are very much related, okay? Now, again, we've learnt about the heart and the mind. We've learned what does the Bible say about you and who you really are. And there's a clear difference between what the Bible says you are and who you are here in this world, right? And what we've been encouraged to do, and rightfully so, is to walk in our godly identity, our heavenly identities, right? But what we also know is that there's a distinction between heart and mind, okay? So, some of us operate in our minds, some operate in our hearts, some operate in both. So the thing is, here's the question for you guys. You know what your true identity is, but who is it that knows what your true identity is? Is it your mind or is it your heart? Okay? Do you know it deep down, deep down? Or was it just head knowledge? Something that's been shared with you, it's been taught to you. Alright? Because there's a big difference between whether your heart knows it and your mind knows it. Okay? If you walk and live your life knowing your true identity only with your mind, it's going to have a minimal impact. It's still great. It's a great start, but the impact's going to be minimal. The change in you is going to be minimal. But the moment your heart starts realizing who you truly are, that's when amazing shifts start happening. That's when amazing things start to happen. And this is one thing the Lord's been teaching me this week, right? Now here's the crux of it. When your heart truly starts understanding and realizing and believing who you truly are, what happens in your heart is it starts aligning itself with God. It starts aligning itself with heaven. And it starts opening up to the heavenly realm. Alright? Now, this is based on my experience alone, but I'm going to show you what the Lord showed me. When your heart starts aligning itself with heaven, it opens up to heaven. When you start walking in your identity, as soon as that happens, there's a transfer of stuff that happens. All right, things start flowing, and I know I'm being a bit vague here because I'm very new to this, but this is what happened to me. All right, so one day I went to work. I had only 2 hours sleep because Gracie had a bad night. And manufacturing's a tough job, so I was exhausted. I just wanted to go home. But this is the day the Lord had me do this, right? So I did it. In the few moments free that I had here and there, I would meditate and I would align my heart. I would align myself to my identity. My heart would open up and I could feel stuff flowing. I don't know what was flowing, all right? I don't know what was happening. But this is what I do know. I knew that I was in heaven. I had stepped beyond the veil, and I knew somehow that heaven was in me. We were very tightly bound, very tightly connected. And I knew that stuff was coming down to me because all of a sudden I wasn't exhausted anymore. I was strong and full of energy. And not only that, but I was getting stronger in terms of character, in terms of personality. I was becoming more confident and more powerful. Okay? I don't know it's very hard to explain, but I became a much bigger person than what I usually am. I became stronger, more confident, more powerful. And what also happened is that this was sort of like confirmed to me because everyone in the place started looking at me differently and treating me differently. Every time I looked up, I had people staring at me. And then I'd look at them and then you get that awkward moment and they'd look away. And then 5 minutes later, they're looking at me again. Anyway, so stuff was happening. The Lord didn't give me any revelation about it, but it was just a powerful experience. And I knew I had to talk about it today, but I was reluctant because I don't like teaching out of experience. Right? I was asking the Lord, how do I explain this? I don't want to talk about this. How do I explain it? And this is what he gave me, right? I want to go to the story of the prodigal son, right? The story of the prodigal son is explored from a lot of different angles for lots of different reasons. But I want to look at the parable of the story of the prodigal son from the perspective of the heart, okay? Which is what we're all about. See, the thing is that I'm assuming you guys all know the story, so I won't read it, but the prodigal son one day decided he wanted his inheritance and he wanted to leave. All right, so what we know from that, which is not explicitly stated, is something happened in his heart to make him decide that this is not where I want to be and there's better out there. All right, so there was to some degree there was deception in his heart. He was deceived. Okay, and his heart turned away from the Father and he set his heart on something else entirely, which was completely wrong, as we know. All right, and he left and he ended up eating the pods of the pigs, and as you know. But when he came to an end of himself, all right, he realized he was wrong. What he did is he turned his heart back to the Father. All right, the moment he gave up and he realized he was wrong, he set his heart back to the Father before he even started heading back. All right, and then there's, maybe I can go back and be a servant and whatnot. And he arose and came to his father, right? But here's the thing. When he was still a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. When he was still far away, he hadn't even made it back yet. The moment he turned around, the father ran to him, right? And then the father said to the servants, "Bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. And bring the fatted calf here and kill it. Let us eat and be merry." This was still far away. They didn't even wait to come back to the house. All right. Now, a lot can be said about the robe and the ring and the authority and whatnot. But the point I want to make here is the fatted calf, which is usually brought out for festive occasions. It was brought to the son immediately where he was. Now we know the son was starving. He was eating literally rubbish. And the father brought him a fatted calf to feed his starving son. So the point of it is this: when you step into your identity and you turn your heart back to God, because when you step into your true identity, what you are doing is you're turning your heart back to God. All right? When you turn your heart to him, he brings you the fatted calf immediately. Because often we assume that this is for backsliders and people that depart from God. But this happens to all of us on a small scale. Sometimes in life we're praying for something, nothing seems to happen, we get disappointed and we withdraw from God, you know, even if it's just for a couple of days. We withdraw from him. And then when things get better, we come back to him. All right? It's the story of the prodigal son on a small scale. All right? The moment we turn back to him, he brings us the fatted calf to feed us. And he gives us what we need. He knows what we are lacking. He knows what we need. He knows that we haven't been fed. He knows that we are weak. He comes and he runs to you, starts feeding you immediately. Now for me, he started feeding me strength. He started feeding me confidence and power. Because that sort of stuff's usually lacking in me. Alright? That's what happens when you step into your identity and your heart starts believing who you really are. Alright? You connect with heaven in a way that I can't articulate or explain. And stuff happens. There's a transfer. God starts feeding you immediately. And of course, it's not just food. It's not just stuff you need. But it's wealth, it's position, honor, authority, righteousness, virtue. All of these other things that are depicted by the ring and the robe and the sandals. Alright. Going back. When you step into your identity, you align yourself with heaven. You align yourself with him. You align yourself with his purposes. You are fed and you are given what you need. You are also aligning yourself to better receive, to better understand. You're aligning yourself with wisdom and guidance. When you step into your true identity, when your heart steps into your true identity, what happens is you actually step out of this worldly realm and you step into the heavenly realm. All right. When we live as victims and we have pity parties for ourselves because things are so hard, we live as victims on the earth. We are subject to this earthly realm. All right. And we cop whatever this earthly realm wants to give us. All right. And Satan is he rules this realm. So we have to deal with his harassment and his hounding as well. But when you step into your identity, when your heart accepts your identity, you step out of this realm. You step into heaven, and then you are subject to heaven. You're subject to the resources of heaven, the provisions of heaven, the rules of heaven. All right? And you can live above this mess. You can live above it. And you can rule over it and govern over it. Okay? That is the power of having your heart accept the identity of who you really are. Interestingly enough, as I was preparing this message, Katie Souza appeared on my YouTube feed, and she's actually been teaching about this too. She released a video about 11 days ago. All right. I don't want to talk about what she said. I don't want to take her teaching and teach it, but she says a lot of interesting stuff about it. It's interesting when Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" Right? Great question, but it's a question I'm going to take and turn on you guys. Who does your heart say that you are? Right? Think about that. Seriously. And you've got to be honest. You've got to let your heart speak. You've got to let your heart speak. You've got to let it be honest. Who does your heart say that you are? Right? What identity does your heart have? Are you a son of God, or are you something else? Are you someone trying to be a son of God? And what? What is your heart saying? All right? Are you a son, or are you not? Are you a victim on earth, depending on God's grace to see you through? Or are you a son, Are you a king? Are you a priest with access to all of heaven's resources, with Satan under your feet? And it's an important question, not only for your mind, but more importantly for your heart, because that dictates how you're going to live and how you relate to heaven. And this is where it gets super interesting. Isaiah 61, arise, shine, for your light has come and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. We've heard that so much recently. We've been implored, now's the time to rise up, rise up, rise up. Now I have a better understanding of what that truly means and what that really looks like. Alright? Rising up is when your heart starts really believing and accepting the truth about who you really are. When your heart starts taking in the truth about who you really are, rising up is something that's going to happen spontaneously, naturally. It's going to happen on its own. You don't have to force it or fake it or try and do it. It's going to happen on its own. Alright? God is wanting to take us to amazing and wonderful places, but He's not going to do that if we're holding back, if we're fearful. We have to get comfortable with it. We have to embrace what He's leading us into and what He's showing us. We have to step into our true identity. Alright? Now the Bible says who we are, we know that clearly, but we've also all had individual words and prophecies about what God says specifically you are. Okay? In order for you to become what God has called you to be, your heart has to know it, it has to accept it and believe it. When that happens, you will step into who God has called you to be. And it's not hard. It's not hard. Your heart has to know and learn and believe the truth. And when you do, you're going to step into the mantles that have been bestowed upon you. You're going to step into the power and authority God's given you. You're going to step into the calling that you've been called to. Alright? You're going to start meeting the requirements on your scroll. You're going to start fulfilling your destiny. Alright? So, I asked you the first time to start stretching your hearts. What I'm going to ask you to do now is to start stepping into your identity. Because all of these things, they lead to the limitless life. A supernatural life. You know, we are sons of God. A supernatural life should be second nature to us. Alright? Just like it was for Jesus. Turning water into wine, healing the blind, the lame to see. Whatever. Yeah? It's supposed to be normal. And that's what's on offer for us. That's what we're being invited into. And God is putting His finger on the obstacles and saying, there you go. Do. Deal with this and you'll move forward. Alright? What I will also encourage you to do in order to rise up and to do these things, don't focus on your problems, your lack, your issues and your challenges. When you focus on these things, they bring despair, they bring discouragement, they bring hopelessness. They ground you and they put out your spiritual fire. Okay? That is how the enemy holds you down. That's how the enemy keeps you planted firmly in this world and not in heaven. Alright? Focus on your identity and don't worry about the rest. And when you step into your true identity, you tackle your issues from that perspective. Alright? Now, let's go to the two questions that Paul raised. How do you do that? Okay. Alright, let's address the question of dealing with the limits in your heart. Alright, when you identify a limit, when you're praying for something, when you're asking for something, and you can feel that your heart is it's not with you. Alright, your heart's either fighting you, or it's arguing, or it's saying something else. And it's very fascinating when you get in touch with your heart. It's amazing what it says. You know, it actually speaks. But here's the thing, right? When you are pursuing something, you will know how you feel. You'll know straight away. There's unbelief there. There's doubt there. You can feel it. Okay. Sometimes there's fear, because what happens is unbelief gives rise to doubt, and when doubt takes root, it gives rise to fear, and you get scared. What if God doesn't actually heal me? Am I going to die? Is my loved one going to die? And then fear takes over, and what fear seeks to do is to consume you, right, and bring you down and smash you. Okay. Those are the things that have to be dealt with, right? Fear, doubt, and unbelief. So, it's a simple matter of delivering the heart. When you are praying for something, you can feel the doubt there, the unbelief. You confess it, and then you pray on behalf of your heart. Just like you're praying on behalf of other people when people come to you for prayer. Right? You do the same thing with your heart. You pray on behalf of your heart. You seek forgiveness for the heart, for the unbelief that it contains. You bring that before God. You seek forgiveness. You repent on behalf of your heart. When that's done, you have the authority to cut that spirit of unbelief off of your heart and you nail it to the cross. You do that once, twice, 3 times. And I tell you what, it's amazing and it's powerful how the heart gets set free. And it gets set free to believe. Your belief opens up, your heart opens up. All right? It's no longer bound, because that's what the spirit of unbelief does. It locks down the heart so you can't believe, so that you can't walk in the truth that the Word gives us. You have to deliver your heart. All right? If you experience fear or doubt, you cut them off. You send them to the cross. You don't engage with them and let them take root. And then you do what the Lord has said. Believe more. Trust more. All right? And what you do is you alternate between the two. You believe and you trust. You open up your heart. But when your heart comes up with fear, doubt, and unbelief, you cut them off. You cut them off because they seek to stop what you are doing. See, the enemy... I've done this many times now. Many, many, many times. The enemy will come very quickly to stop you when you're trying to do this. Okay? And he will throw all manner of rubbish at you to get you to stop, because an open heart and a heart that's open to God is so powerful. It's the last thing he wants. Alright? He will come down. And to me, that is demonstration of how powerful this is. An open heart and a believing heart. Alright? Fear, doubt, and unbelief. Cut them off. Deliver your heart. Set your heart free from that. And then believe more and trust more. And then wait to see what happens. Go deeper and deeper and deeper. Alright? Does that make sense? Okay. Your heart, as I've said before, is like a little child. Okay? It's like a little child. You've got to help it. You've got to lead it on the way. You've got to help it open up. You don't shut it down. You don't rebuke it. You don't... I don't know what we do. We've got to lead it. You've got to deliver it. You've got to help it. And bring it to a point that it's completely open and believing, and your prayer will be answered. Okay. That's question number 1. You happy with that?
I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
I do it a different way.
I'm not saying that's the only way. That's the way I've learned. But yeah, I'm sure there's lots of ways. Now, the other thing... How do you step into your real identity? How do you start convincing your heart what your true identity is? Okay, now, this is a spiritual activity. Again, we engage the mind and the heart. Now, you can draw up a list of who you really are, right? Dot points. When you look at that list for the first time, for the first few minutes, it's just your mind that's engaging it. All right? And that's fine. That's where it all begins, but it's very powerless. What you do is you engage with what you are reading. You are a son of God. Okay. Allow yourself to visualize that. Imagine it. Experience it. Step into it. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it mean that you are a son of God? Immerse yourself into that truth. Don't just have it sitting there in your mind. Immerse yourself into that truth. Because one of the things the Lord has shown me is when you do that, when you immerse yourself in something and you really engage the imagination, that's when the heart feeds off what you are meditating on. And when your heart feeds off that, it starts changing and it affects the heart. Alright? So if you take your identity, what God says you are, and you meditate on it, immerse yourself on it, visualize it, spend time doing it, what actually happens is it starts dropping from the mind into the heart. Okay? After a while, it stops becoming a mental activity and it starts becoming a heart activity. And when it starts becoming a heart activity, that's when it starts becoming a spiritual reality. Alright? Because here's the thing. Whatever becomes a reality for your heart, it has an impact on the spiritual. Alright? So it starts as a mental activity. As you continue and you go deeper, it becomes a heart activity, and then it impacts the spirit. Okay? You only really truly step into something when your heart steps into it first. Yeah? Not your mind. And when things start becoming a reality for your heart, that's when the limits start breaking down. And that's where things really start to shift and change. That's when you start stepping into really supernatural stuff. Okay? That's the answer to your second question, Paul. Maybe we'll talk about that one later too. But listen, like with all things, there are depths. There are depths. When you engage with something, it begins in the head. It's very shallow. It's very shallow, your mind. But as you engage with it deeper and deeper, you go into deeper and deeper depths. It goes down into your heart. The further down it goes, the more of an impact it has on the spirit. Okay? So keep going and keep pushing and keep going deeper. Don't give up too quickly. I'm going to finish with this. Limitless life is, as we know by now, an overcoming of the limitations of the heart, because that's where the limits live. All right, to walk in the bigger things, your heart has to believe. We all know the parable of the sower. All right, parable of the sower. I'm not going to read it, but
Did you say the power of the soul?
the parable of the sower.
Of the soul?
Yeah. At the end of that parable, it says, others fell on good ground and yielded a crop, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. Okay? We are called to be the 100-fold. Okay? And it's all dependent entirely on the heart. If you're willing to do the work and to break down those limits, we are called into a limitless life, and that is represented by those who walk in the 100-fold. Okay? So I think I'm going to end it there. If you want to come chat to me after, by all means, Paul, I'll be waiting for you. And thanks, Helena.